Hey, my name is Steve DeJong. I'm the CEO of Verify Technology. With us today, Mike Hudson, CEO of Southern Cross Gold. Uh, Mike, you've had some incredible results coming out of your project in Victoria recently. Do you mind taking us through what's going on there?
Sure, Steve. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of it straight away, and really just try and highlight some of the key aspects here. So this is the Victorian Goldfields. Here's Fosterville out through here that made remade Victoria. It's been the highest grade gold mine on earth for many of the last 5 years, and a top 10 producer globally. Costerfield here is 2 million ounce system, and really helped recreate the Victorian goldfields. And we came in standing on the back of those giants. And here's our Sunday Creek project down here in the bottom right hand corner. And what really has made this so special is simply this. And that's just these spectacular drill results. So here's the guts of the project. It's over 10 kilometers, but we're really looking at just the higher grade parts here, that we've been drilling with much more ferocity. So the black are the holes that we've released, the yellow are holes that are in the lab, and the old workings you can see there in grey as I rotate this around, and it's about 1.2 kilometre strike. The pink dots are anything that's assayed greater than 20 grams gold equivalent. We have about 15 to 20% on average antimony potential byproduct there, but there's some uber high grades in this system, and it's continuing to depth, so which has been quite spectacular. Hole 50 was the big one last year that saw half a kilometre of mineralisation down through there, and then we've been drilling down in these areas. Actually, Verify hasn't been updated in this presentation we're using today. A couple of days ago, we put out 1.2 metres at 120 grams here. That was a 115 metre step out from 14 metres here at 7, which included 250 gram intersection. And then, they're 300 metre step outs from up through this area here. So
And sorry to interrupt, but I was going to ask, is there other drilling in this area? Or like these, it seems like your hit rate's incredible for the holes that we're seeing here. Has there been other drilling in the area, or is this all virgin ground?
There was about 5,000 metres historically in the project drilled in the 90s and early 2000s, which gave it a bit of pedigree and the confidence when we bought this project to go into it. But it really was only focused in the top area, just in this area. So
Yeah.
everything you see here has come over the last few years, and that's down to almost a kilometre now of scale. And then the other beautiful thing about Verify just shows the gaps in where we're going, and we can perhaps address that. But you can see these areas out through here haven't been tested, and going to depth, we're just starting to test out through here, and even the detail, there's nothing through here. So maybe only 30% of the area has been tested. It's delivering at a hit rate that is world class, really, in terms of the intersections and the amount of gold that's being spat out of this project.
And these 12, what do we see here? 12 meters of 18 grams, 13 meters of 14 grams. These are big, wide intersections, big, wide zones as well.
Yeah, so we're getting width and grade, and that's the beauty of this. So the old timers mined, thin meter type in these. This was down at 150 meters, so they were quite significant old mines in the 1800s, meters at ounces. But there's also a lot of gold between those high grade structures. So we're seeing 21 at 15, 21 at 6, 13 at 14, 39 at 7, those kind of numbers, right? That are quite staggering across the field.
And what's the best analog here for, like, is it, I know we're sort of in the same region as Fosterville and others. Is that what we're looking for? Is that the target we're going for?
Yeah, let's zoom back out and maybe address that by looking at where we are. So we're down here in southern Australia, the Victorian gold. Oops, I should use a different colour there. Victorian goldfields down through here. The 80 million ounces has come out of the Victorian goldfields, and that has been predominantly from those green areas there. So uh, what we're looking for are these orange areas, simply put. So there's Fosterville here, and Costerfield, and the like is through here, and then we're down here. Now, the green is where what made Victoria famous. It built basically Australia and built the expansion of the English Empire. A tremendous amount of gold. It vied with California for the gold rush place in the globe in those 1850s, and then went through to about World War One, and that really decimated the industry when all the men left to go and fight, and then the gold industry post the wars went to Western Australia, and Victoria got forgotten. Then Fosterville, as everybody knows, rewrote the history of Victoria. But it's a key point here is that what made it famous in the past is not what is making it famous today. And Fosterville was a pretty average mine for 15 to 20 years. The top 800 meters was 5-gram refractory dirt, and it's only when they hit a change in how these systems, these orange systems, which we call epizonal gold systems, change at depth. And they hit a fantastic area, the Swan Zone, and it was they were mining at 40 grams head grade for many years. A highest grade gold mine on earth, as I mentioned, and Costerfield is now doing the same. And so we can stand on the back of those giants and say, well, we understand these systems better now. Let's go to depth, and hence, you see we're hitting a lot of gold at depth, and we don't need to necessarily just stay near surface. That being said, the top parts of our system are infinitely better than either of those two deposits in the upper zones. We're hitting a much higher grades of gold, free gold, at widths that wasn't seen in the top parts of those systems, really. So we do have that benefit, but we also have the benefit of the change in these systems. So that's really the analog for what we're trying to do here, Steve.
Interesting, and I know that you've had a lot of success at on the main project there, but it sounds like there's a few other targets on trend as well.
Exactly. So if we zoom in now to this area down through here, which is just the focus of the area which we showed just before. Obviously Sunday Creek down through here, Fosterville, just reminding everyone, and Costerfield. We do have the along strike extensions of Costerfield in ground. This is a Redcastle joint venture here that we own 70% of today. We also have the Roo joint venture out through here. So these are all epizonal fields. We put the best drill hole into this field in 167 years. That's also a very high grade area there. But clearly, our focus is at Sunday Creek, which is delivering the goods, and that's where we need to put 95% of our budget. So perhaps we can have a look at that in a little bit more detail and move on from those other areas.
Yeah, sounds good.
So looking at the area, we've got big land package. You need big land packages to find big systems by default. It's no use having little land, little exploration licenses. So this is something like 20,000 hectares. The system is large. So it's the key drill area we were looking at just before is down through here, but it does extend over something like 10 kilometers. And all these little faint blue lines here are the LIDAR workings. So historic mine workings that have been identified by LIDAR. So that's a benefit.
Those are trenches at surface that show up in a LIDAR scan, or what is that?
Trenches, pits, shafts, a bit of everything. And I think, if we start to zoom in, we can see that in a bit more detail. So this is the LIDAR imagery looking along that trend. And again, I'll answer that question that you asked before, but that's the main drill area and the 10-kilometer trend going this way. We are now drilling out at this project, Tonstal. And so they're the first holes regionally. We're 7.5 kilometers away out through there. results will start to flow from those holes in the next month, something like that. But you can see the trend. But the lidar has been a beautiful exercise in basically rediscovering old gold fields. Sorry, I went. Normally in one of these presentations, I have a detail of the lidar, but maybe we
No
could just
problem.
maybe we could
And
just
sorry, the red and green here, that's the geochem samples, with the red being the higher grade kind of soil or geochem hits. Is that right?
precisely,
And
exactly.
then
So you can see the old mine areas with the stars, and the red bars are higher gold in soils.
so you from a targeting perspective, and there is sorry, there's overburden, or there's forest, or there's
Yeah,
what does it look like at surface?
yeah. So this is the farm that we own here. So we bought 320 acres. So we own the freehold. Very important in terms of access. And then basically, when you go out into these areas up through here, we're talking forest, and it doesn't look like it's got forest. That's a lidar strips basically away the forest because it can see through the trees as
Okay.
you bombard the area with these laser beams from an aircraft. But it's quite forested. Lots of tracks, fully permitted. That's another big point in terms of working anywhere, is have a big land position and make sure you're permitted to drill. Have the pedigree of gold, and then put lots of drill rigs on it. So we've got 4 rigs turning on this slide here today, and we're drilling something like 30 kilometers over the next year. We're relatively early in this discovery. 25 kilometers so far has been drilled. All of it in that focus area, which I can zoom back into here, that we looked at earlier.
And the yellow ones here are holes that you've already drilled, but assays have not been put out yet. Is that right?
Precisely.
Okay.
Other than one hole here that we put out another hit here just in the last day or so that we're updating here, but that was a 115 meter step out, 2 meters here at 1.2 meters, I should say, at 120 grams. So just staggering the high grades, continuing. We're seeing free gold start to increase as we go to depth. That's what we want to see. That's what happened at Fosterville. It went from that refractory gold down to that free gold. When you see this free gold, it's generally at a higher grade. And this result here, for example, was the second best highest grade on the property in terms of grade time mix width. If you look at anything greater than 100 grams, that was the second best result on the property. So we're seeing it get better at depth, which was what we want to. But you can see there's a hell of a lot of gold, and just simply put with those dumping circles.
And vertical depth there is 500 meters or so.
It's deeper. That was that result down there that I just took off, but I'll put back on for you here, Steve. Is 830 meters vertically down.
Vertically, downhole or vertical from
vertical depth from surface.
Okay,
It was something like 900 meters downhole. Yeah,
interesting.
Deepest on the property.
And so are you? I had a chat last week with CEO from a different company, and 2,500 meter hole they're drilling right now in Canada. But
Canadians,
800 meters, that's shallow.
Canadians drill deep. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And actually, it's a bit of a segue, but I've had my experience in Canada for the last 25 years, even though I've got this funny accent. And I'm bringing the learning from Canada that I learned from Canada. Drill deep, and nobody's done these sort of holes in exploration ever in Victoria. The mines have, but not in exploration. Yeah. And it's it is a Canadian learning. Go deep and don't be afraid to drill if your system's continuing. That's why you make it very big.
Exactly. And then you apply the Aussie mining methods to it, where it doesn't matter how deep it is, you just start a ramp and just keep on going. Or the Canadians just love their shafts.
Exactly. It's a very different philosophy there. But and Australians love their mineral resources. Canadians just want to drill and make it bigger.
Yeah. So on that note, is there enough drilling now where you can start to tie these together and understand how these zones tie together, or is that a little ways out and just more drilling required at this time?
Well, there's a number of different answers to that. Yes, we know how they hang together, and you can see here the grey polygons that we put in are these high grade veins. So this system, if we just look down on it, is basically the I looked down and then we spun around. Sorry about that. What we've got is this green, dark green host rock. It's a big structure, and that continues for the 10 kilometers across the field. Then we have these northwest veins. So if we just look in plan view, and I draw that, so we have this east west basically structure, which we call a dike breccia, and then we have these northwest veins, sort of like rungs of a ladder across the field. And these veins are very frequent. We're seeing them at sort of 20 to 50 meter frequency. So just going back to where we were looking there before, you can see those northwest veins, and we've just put them where the drill holes are. But they've got great continuity. Some of them where we've drilled them, are literally right down through that. They're 800 meters long, and you've got great continuity. In terms of drilling them out across this way, of course, we've been drilling them down, but they've got some width in this direction, but we haven't been able to put a lot of holes yet across the width. And it looks like it's getting wider at depth. We know that. So, it's maybe 40 to 50 meters wide here, but it's minimum, sort of 60, 70, 80 meters down through here. Yeah. So it just will require a lot of drilling, but at the moment we're focusing on extending areas, so filling gaps, going down beneath these areas. I mean, even in this area here, this is the beauty of Verify. You see, it looks like it's been drilled, of course, there's no gold in there. So you've drilled that area, have you? But actually, when you look through here, it's a gap, and it hasn't been drilled. It's just the projection of those holes. So you can see that's another big gap through there. And then, of course, there's half a kilometre here through here that we haven't started to drill, which we will soon.
And I think you'd mentioned 4 drill rigs, 3 of them on this project, and 1 poking around other targets a little further away.
1 poking around at 7.5 kilometres away on the same dike breccia structure with those high grade veins that the LiDAR does show us at surface, has the same footprint, and so if and when those holes start to come back with any significant gold, it will just show that this system is a monster. At the moment we've found a lot, but if we can extend it over that 10 or 11 kilometers, that's a very similar footprint to what Fosterville had in terms of historic workings. So lots of exciting things happening.
And just what are you more excited about? The one that's sort of off going for the new target, or the one that's kind of testing for extension and step out to the known area? I guess tough question.
How many children do you have, and which is your favorite, Steve?
You don't want me to answer that.
You can't answer that. You can't have a favorite child, but to answer it a bit more sensibly, they're all key parts, right? So I think showing the deepest drilling that I mentioned that we've got down here, with much more visible gold, that it's hanging up together along a similar structure, is a key. That they've got free golds increasing. We're drilling down in these areas now. They're all key holes to demonstrate. When we get in here over the next few months, that will be a key. But 10.5 kilometers or 10 kilometers that way, with drilling 7.5 to 8 kilometers away, is a key game changer for the project. And one thing I do want to say, because people don't really understand what we have all the time, and that's again what Verify can do. This half kilometer hole here had 13 veins in it, and we only drilled it down to test this, and it just stayed in mineralization. So that was an incredible hole. That was at the 320 meter at 1.6 grams, but it was mainly those very high grades that you can see that chain of pink down through there. And people say, well, you haven't been able to replicate that. And the reason that we've been drilling in the opposite direction, which is these holes here, are to drill across that green that we saw before, host horizon, so we can nail it down, so we can then drill more of these holes in this orientation. So that's what you'll start to see, more longer holes staying within that green zone that I'll bring up here now. So you're not always going to see the knock it out of the park holes as we build up the story, but
Interesting.
they're
Yeah.
all adding incrementally and logically to drilling this out.
Yeah. So some of those holes are just helping target future holes, and then once in a while have the odd hit in them as well.
Well, they all have hits, and they all have,
Yeah.
100-gram type meter hits in them, so they're all in
Yeah.
their own right. But by nature of drilling from this direction, you're going to be drilling across that green host, and you're only going to be targeting one or two of those veins. Whereas if we drill down that way, for example, you're going to
Yeah.
be drilling multiple veins. So it's a key aspect in understanding structural geology and the controls on gold,
Yeah.
and nailing down that host is a key, because it's easy to drill out of it in the east-west direction if we haven't nailed it down from the other direction.
And in my understanding from a news flow perspective, uh, drill, and drill. Going to be a lot of drill results coming out. As far as resource estimates and next steps and so on. It's my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Is that it's for the foreseeable future. It's really just kind of build sort of the known. I don't say ore body, but build the known sort of footprints of what you're dealing with and continue to expand wherever possible.
Yeah, fully permitted. Last quarter reported over 17 million bucks in the bank. 4 drill rigs. I'd like to take it to 5 when we bedded those 4 down, demonstrating the system getting bigger, and that can happen through drilling to depth, which we've talked about, and I've drawn lots of circles now on here. For example, it's about targeting the very highest grade. So it's not always volume that creates ounces; it's targeting
Yeah.
the very high grades, and we have some very high grades at sort of ounces that form high grade shoots within this that we can focus on, and then that larger scale also drilling out regionally. So that's one, make it bigger, demonstrate how it hangs together, and that comes from more detailed drilling. But you've got to balance that off with the making it bigger. The shareholders will make a lot more money by us demonstrating this is a multi-million ounce system, as opposed to putting in a 500,000 to 1 million ounce resource too quickly,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
If we focus there. So stay on that
Yeah.
Lassonde curve exploration curve. Pierre Lassonde is an investor in our stock, and he uses his curve to make investment decisions. And of course, you've got to keep it real, and we're doing all that work behind the scenes. You can't target to depth unless you understand the controls. We're doing the met work. We're doing a lot of environmental baseline study work. We're doing a lot of political background work to demonstrate that the significance of the project for the state and the country. We're working very hard at the grassroots level, making sure that we're keeping all the stakeholders around the project up to date, and they understand what's happening. We're working very hard with the native title group, the Tungarang. So there's a whole lot of things that you need to do
Yeah.
behind the scenes, but simply put, let's make it bigger and show how it hangs together.
Okay. Well, Michael, congratulations. It's exciting to see. Continue to watch the results going forward. Thanks for taking the time today.
Steve, thanks. Verify has been a wonderful way to articulate the story. So thank you for your product. Take care.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.